Now, social housing landlords will now have to investigate and fix damp and mould within strict time limits under a proposed new law being introduced in memory of Awaab, the 2-year-old boy who died from exposure to mould in his own home.
Awaab's law will be added as an amendment to the social housing bill, and his parents' cause for change. They were speaking yesterday saying, thank goodness they've finally been heard after years of campaigning since their son's death. Here's what they had to say after hearing the news.
My wife and I are still struggling to deal with this loss of our son. We hope that our law will help stop any other family going through to the pain we have gone through. We would not wish this pain on anybody.
So utterly adorable and so brave of those parents to speak out like they are. We are now joined by housing activist Kwajo Tweneboa, who has made it his mission to expose some of the country's worst social housing conditions.
And also mum of 4, Alexandra Osebonzu, who has spent the last 17 years battling black mould that has spread through her North London flat. Alex, we may have a little bit of good news, mightn't we, that you've done, but do you want to tell us about and have a look at some of the conditions that you've been living with for 17 years?
Yeah, it's been really awful. The mould is it's black.
Yeah.
The whole ceiling, the windows, the walls, from the top to the bottom.
Doesn't matter how many times you scrub it,
No.
how many times you...
No, it just keeps coming back, but it's not just me. It's the whole building.
Right.
It is the whole building. But I got so fed up because I've got small children as well, and I've got health conditions also. I've literally tried everything. I've tried speaking to my MP. I've got letters from hospitals, psychiatrists, occupational therapists, everyone.
In the 17 years, have they ever been round? Has somebody from the council ever been around to even look at it, let alone try and repair it?
Once.
Once?
Once.
And how long has this been going on for, just so we get some idea? How long have you had them on?
After a few months of me moving in, and I've been there for 17 years.
You are kidding me.
So when they came round, what happened?
They said that they're gonna treat it, and I won't get it again.
And did they treat it?
I don't know what they actually did,
But
it was gone.
Yeah.
It was gone, but it did come back.
Right. And this is... You've got small children. This is really impacting your life. You can't live... We can hear, actually, you're a little out of breath this morning, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah.
Is that, do you fear, partly contributed by the conditions?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Even my doctor said it. Being an asthmatic, living in mouldy conditions, is only going to get worse.
I mentioned some good news. We contacted, because you live in the area that's covered by Haringey Council, don't you? You contacted them, and they came round.
Yeah.
We contacted them to ask for a comment.
Right, I thought as much. But do you know what saddens me? Something bad has to happen, or they have to be pushed by you guys or the papers for them to actually do something. I mean, I've been battling them being overcrowded, and my autistic children and my disabilities. A lot of the time I'm isolated because I've got 15 steps from the front door to get into the property. And with the mould, you know, it's been horrible.
Alex, can I ask...
So when you said they came round, what's happening now?
So they called me, and she called me from home, because this was in the evening, saying that she's found a temporary accommodation for me.
Right.
It's a 2-bedroom. And she said, until the works have been done. And I said, how long would that be? She told me it will be 3 to 4 weeks. And I don't know how it would only take 3 to 4 weeks if you see the state of the property.
Should we give Haringey Council's statement? They've said that they're appalled to see the conditions that the family are living in and will be reviewing their processes to understand how this issue wasn't addressed earlier. Your thoughts on that statement, if I may?
to me, they would say it like that. I mean, I was, they ignored me. My London got involved. Then they made that statement.
I find it, I find it absolutely unbelievable that they can be surprised when you've been there for 17 years and they are surprised. They must be absolutely aware, because you will not be the only one.
Exactly, but the thing is, I've sent in pictures and everything, and I pleaded with them, just come to my home and see yourself.
Let's speak to Kwajo. Kwajo Tweneboa.
Shaking his head throughout that, weren't you, Kwajo? Does it sound familiar?
Yeah, it does, and it's absolutely enraging. I think it's an absolute disgrace on behalf of the council that they've had you in there for 17 years, and now all of a sudden, Good Morning Britain's got involved, and they're appalled all of a sudden. Under no circumstances should you and your family have been in there, and it's enraging because I can even hear you speaking, and the fact that you're out of breath, you're living in those conditions. It's beyond a disgrace. A failure is the only way I can describe it on behalf of the council.
Yeah. I mean, Kwajo, what is going on? Where are the fault? Where does the fault lie? Can the council argue that they just don't have enough resources, they don't have enough people, or is it pure incompetence and a lack of compassion? Where do you think the real problem is in this?
I think it's a mixture between the two. I mean, councils say that they don't have enough funding. I think there is the argument there for more funding, especially for local authorities. Having said that, under no circumstances, you being a council providing homes to some of the most vulnerable people in the country, should you be allowing tenants to live in these conditions. And if it is an issue with finances, we need to be hearing more. We need to hear local councils be more vocal about the fact that they believe they don't have enough funding to look after their tenants. But then again, I do think it's an issue with incompetence too, and the fact that it hasn't been a priority. A lot of these individuals working for these housing providers, whether that be council or housing associations, don't have to live in these conditions, and it's the lack of care fundamentally that frustrates me the most.
Kwajo, if it wasn't the work that you have done that lots of us have seen online, we would not even know about this. And, you know, and that's the thing that bothers me the most, actually, Alex, is that it's a part of a hidden world. This is where you live. We don't get to see that. There'll be people, I hope, watching and being sort of inspired by your position and knowing that this law may change their lives. People will be watching from their homes, living in the same conditions. I just want to ask you, how did it make you feel when you're in that house? You can see mould like that. It's not going away. You've got your young child there. You put the TV on. Life is carrying on as normal for so many other people. What was going through your head at that point?
I'm not saying it was, it is depressing. Depressing. I mean, for my children mainly. I've still got little ones. And my daughter's asthmatic also. What it's actually doing to them, and I can't do nothing about it because I'm not being heard. I'm being ignored.
Do you get to a point...
The helplessness as a parent is devastating, isn't it? With your absolute urge is to protect your children and in that position. Kwajo, could I ask you, you have been extraordinary in your campaigning on this programme as well, and we've all, you know, always fascinated by what you have today, and we feel we learn every time we speak to you. What do you make of this new law? Is it the way forward? Are these amendments going to help? Has it got enough teeth? Haringey Council have said they're going to have a zero tolerance to mould, to be fair to them, from now on. Do you take confidence from this?
I definitely welcome it. I think it's a long time coming. It shouldn't have taken the death of an innocent boy for this to be put on the agenda of the government. Having said that, I'm glad that the Secretary of State has stood behind this firmly from when it was announced and has supported it, and it will be passed through. I think it's going to change the lives for so many currently, even waking up this morning, living in homes with damp and mould in social housing. Having said that, I do have 3 areas that I think we need to keep an eye on, and that's how far the government's willing to go in order to enforce this. If they're not willing to go far enough, then it's simply not going to work. Secondly, the consultation period that they're talking about of 7 to 14 days in order for landlords to tackle this issue of damp and mould in severe cases. They obviously need to put that back to the sector now, but I think that's enough time. I think Secretary of State yesterday said he believes that's enough time, and our family clearly does. So it's going to be interesting to see what they say. But thirdly, and most importantly, I think alongside Awaab's law, there needs to be investment by the housing sector into scientific research when it comes to tackling the different kinds of mould that can grow in a property, because currently what they're doing is washing it off the wall with a bit of bleach and painting over it and hoping that it doesn't come back. That is not a permanent solution. If they do not find a permanent solution, even with Awaab's law, we're going to find tenants suffering with the same issues and reoccurring issues of damp and mould. Having said that, if the government do get it right and enforce it correctly, scientific research and Awaab's law, I do think it could be a solution to fix this issue.
Which would be good, because a solution is definitely needed. And as you said, councils don't have money, so this needs to be backed and seen through properly on all levels, doesn't it?
You know, and people like Alex need to be stopped being treated like they're third-class citizens. You know, and that's the point, I think. You know, it's not just a liquor paint and wash it off with bleach. Exactly. Nobody would do that in our own houses. Why should you have to suffer that in your house?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, Alex, honestly. Thank you. If you have been affected by any of the issues we've been discussing, you can find advice and support at itv.com/helplines.